Third down and 20.
Welcome back, 3rd and 20 podcast, episode 47. My name is Frank Entwistle. We got the main man, the co-host, Mr. Steed, who finally got his microphone working. We are talking about draft winners and draft losers, and I can finally get into my big draft winner, my very large draft winner. And that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kind of unsurprisingly, they had a ton of draft capital, including the big one, the big tuna, the number 1 overall pick that let them go out and get the golden boy, Mr. Sunshine, Trevor Lawrence, the future himself. But you know, the thing I see with the Jaguars when I look at this football team, because it's a team that won 1 game last year. It was just misery after week 1. They upset the Colts, and after that, it was just a downhill slide into the number 1 pick. And the thing that I see with the Jaguars nowadays is I look at a team with Urban Meyer. They bring in Darrell Bevell from the Lions, a OC that I actually like, I'm fond of. They bring in Raheem Morris from the Falcons as their DC, a guy that we both were huge fans of, and what he was able to do with the Falcons defense. Just the differences you saw when he was a defensive coordinator compared to Dan Campbell, whoever they would hire or promote in between. It was like night and day.
Yeah.
And I see a team that I really feel is going to be on the forefront of this new style of football where the college game and the college schemes are kind of starting to intertwine with the NFL. You see a lot of NFL teams using a lot more RPOs, a lot more air raid-esque concepts, which were, for the most part, only used in college football for a long time. It really feels like the Jaguars are going to be an innovator. They're not going to be a laggard in football, in the schemes, in coaching. They're going to be one of the innovators. And to me, that is one of in any industry, that is a scary team. The scary companies, the scary teams are always the teams that are thinking and are ahead of the curve. And I feel like we finally get the Jaguars ahead of the curve. And this draft class really cements that for me. So obviously, you pick up Trevor Lawrence at pick 1. You weren't going to screw that one up, right? Most talented quarterback in the draft. But then a lot of people gave them flack for Travis Etienne at 25. And this is that innovative philosophy that I think could really help out the Jaguars, is that if you want to run this up-tempo, lots of RPOs, easy offense, make it easy on your quarterback that you just took and really maximize his talent, well, you take his buddy, his running back that he's been working with really heavily the past 2 seasons in Travis Etienne, and now you create a real 2-headed monster there in Jacksonville with Etienne and James Robinson. And not only that, we go into day 2, and this is where the draft for the Jaguars, in my opinion, really elevated to the next level. Because I think they were the easy, clear winners on day 2 of the NFL draft. First pick of day 2, they pick up Tyson Campbell, a player that at least I thought, I'm pretty sure Steed as well, was better than the guy who went before him, Eric Stokes. It's just Eric Stokes tested better. Then at 45, you pick up Walker Little, the tackle out of Stanford, a guy who I think was a first-round talent. I think everyone kind of thought was a first-round talent. He's just hasn't played. So the upside there is tremendous in terms of getting a franchise-level left tackle, and a left tackle that, in terms of talent, I thought was better than a whole lot of the tackles that went before him. And then my favorite pick, Andre Sisco in the 3rd round. One of the best, if not the best, value pick for me in the draft. A guy that I had easily as a top 60 prospect. I think I might have him in the argument, probably would be the top safety for me in the draft. A guy that tore his ACL last year, didn't play a large part of the season, but is kind of that do-it-all safety. You pick him up with pick 65 early in the 3rd round. And then just to cap it off, you pick up Jay Tufele in the 4th round, a guy that I thought was a day 2 player that just happened to slide onto day 3. To me, Jaguars, they get an A+. This is a home run, and it was set up for a home run. But they have with the whole offseason, with the coaching changes, free agency, now into the draft, I believe that the Jaguars have gone from a one-win football team to a fringe playoff team. And you have to give them an A plus because that was the biggest jump that any team made in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I too love the Jags draft class, and of course, you hit it with T Law. But when you look at this team now on paper, and you look at the team that won one win last year, and you're saying now they're a fringe playoff team, I'm going to agree with you, especially in that division that's kind of wide open at the moment. I mean, Philip Rivers not there. We know the Colts roster is like pretty good, but is Carson Wentz going to be the guy that we seen a couple years ago? That's not a given. The Texans are in shambles right now. And the Titans, I'm kind of out on the Titans this year. They lost their OC, and, their defense couldn't stop a nosebleed last year. So for the Jags to really come in here next season with this draft class and really great, capable players and just a new look, like you hit on the coaching staff, Urban Meyer is going to probably bring the boys around and make this team very competitive.
All right, who's your draft winner?
All right, my first one, I'm going to stay with them. The Cleveland Browns. I felt like they just kind of knocked this draft out of the park for me. Uh, like I've said on previous podcasts, I've fallen in love with Greg Newsome, the corner from Northwestern. I thought he would go top 20, and they were able to pick him up at 26. A position we know they need some secondary revamp. They've done a good job in the offseason, but it's still where they get a very talented corner. And then round two, a guy that I'm pretty sure you were thinking it too. We were thinking of Wosha Koromoa was going in the first round, probably be the second linebacker off the board after Micah Parsons. Well, now that I just heard that he had the heart problem, but still just a guy that, just fell in the draft and really just fell in their laps for a position they do need and who's versatile and that can really shape up this defense. And, they pick up a Speedster and Anthony Schwartz. I'm sure Stefanski will have fun with him. But in other positions, they pick up another tackle on James Hudson, and then the rest of their draft just kind of felt like fill-in needs, like for depth of their team. They take out the defensive tackle from Ohio State, Tommy Togiel. They get a linebacker from West Virginia, and I love their round 5 pick is a guy that I'm really high on, Richard LeCount. He was a top high school prospect and had a great career at UGA. You pick him up in the 5th round for you having lack of secondary depth last year, and you get some guys back. It just feels like, the Browns are – I've said it before, they're not the Browns of old. Like, they took this winning season they had last year that's very impressive. They went balls to the wall in the offseason, and then the draft, I felt like they just killed it and got some great picks. And I feel like this is a team, with Baker's rookie contract, they're going to be one of my Super Bowl picks. They are. I think with this draft class, it elevates them into that realm where you could talk about the Browns giving the Chiefs the run for the money in the AFC.
Yeah, I like the Browns as a draft winner. So some of the other draft winners I have that I'm not going to talk about explicitly, but I do think should be mentioned. The Panthers, I thought, had a great draft, and I really like the direction that they're heading in. The Vikings, I thought, had another killer draft. I am a huge fan of their draft strategy of, hey, let's trade down early. Let's just acquire picks left, right, and center. And then whatever round we're targeting guys, whether it's round 3, round 4, whatever, we still have our first and second round picks, but then we have a ton of picks on late day 2 and day 3 that it just really feels like it's a great way to add a plethora of talent to their football team. Other teams like the Lions, I really like their draft and their draft strategy, building up front. I've said it on the podcast before. If I'm a rebuilding team, the first thing I am doing is revamping my offensive and defensive line. And that's exactly what the Lions did. And it's not going to be sexy, but it's exactly the building blocks that franchise needed to turn this thing around in a couple of seasons. It was not going to be a one-year thing. Now, there's some other ones. I thought the Broncos did well. The football team, there's a lot to choose from. The Chiefs. But one team that I like that I don't think is getting enough credit, mainly because it didn't feel like they reached for needs, which is very popular in the draft community. Everyone loves saying, "Oh, we'll just take BPA," but then when a team goes BPA at a position that it didn't feel like a desperate need, they start getting shit. And to me,
Yeah.
that team is the Arizona Cardinals. So Arizona Cardinals, just round 1 and round 2 alone, Zaven Collins and Rondale Moore, I both had as first round prospects. Zaven Collins, easily one of the most versatile freak linebackers. This is a guy I was hoping the Steelers would get at 24. You just don't get players of his skill set around very often. He's huge. He's 6'5", like 260, 270. He has insane
Hmm.
instincts. He can cover. He can rush the passer. He's fast. He's powerful. It's like he's the total package of a football player. And to me, just because he played for Tulsa, and I can imagine that a whole lot of people haven't watched Tulsa's defense, you see him go at 16, you're like, oh, well, that's not a very good pick. But if this is a guy that if he played in the SEC, everyone would be drooling over his talent because of how
Yeah.
much of a freak he is. And then you pick up, now you start going into an actual need. And this is exactly what I wanted for the Arizona Cardinals and my Cardinals film analysis on the channel is pick up a playmaker. Right now, D-Hop and Kyler Murray were, at least last season, were asked to just make plays. Hey, whether it was Kyler Murray making a couple of mistakes and putting them behind the chains, or their interior offensive line getting destroyed and setting them behind the chains, or Cliff Kingsbury having some bad play calls, putting them behind the chains. It felt like every game it was almost, hey, D-Hop and Kyler Murray bail us out in these scenarios. And the problem with that was that defenses easily figured that out and tried, and they forced other guys to come up with plays. And last year, the second most reliable player outside of D-Hop and Murray's running ability was Larry Fitzgerald. That is a
Yeah.
problem. If you're a Super Bowl, you're trying to make the playoffs, you're trying to make the Super Bowl, make a real run, like 38-year-old Larry Fitzgerald cannot be your second most reliable player. He just didn't have the athletic ability anymore to really separate consistently. Well, you just got a guy that is a freaking beast in Rondale Moore. You talk about separation, a dude that you can just put the ball in his hands at any phase of the field. At pick 49, I love Rondale Moore. This dude will give the Cardinals an element on offense they have been missing, and it will take pressure off the top two playmakers of that offense and hopefully give them that reliable third guy that will set their offense from being average. Because whether you want to admit it or not, if you watch the Cardinals offense back, they're an average offense. They have the sexy players, but last year they were an average offense. Now they pick up Hudson. His name is Hudson, right? The center from the Raiders.
Yeah. Rodney Hudson.
Yeah, Rodney Hudson. They picked up him, all pro level center. Now you pick up Rondale Moore, who I believe was a first round talent at receiver, a late first round guy. And you'll be able to do some fun things with him in your offense with Cliff Kingsbury. Phenomenal day 1, day 2 picks there. And then just, some of the other picks I like from them at the back end was Marco Wilson and Tay Gowan out of the Florida schools, Florida and Central Florida, respectively. We both thought Tay Gowan was going to go earlier. I really like the possible upside of Marco Wilson. So low-key kind of draft winner for me, Arizona Cardinals.
I like that. Another low key draft winner for me is our Hooters team, is the Giants. There's mixed feelings between Kadarius Toney or what's not, and it sucks that the Giants got kind of screwed out again by the Eagles and the Cowboys by missing out on Devontae. But you pick up Kadarius Toney, and we've looked at what he has, just a huge upside in his speed and things. But if he could put it together and Daniel Jones could find like some kind of good niche with him, then I really like that pick. Second round, they needed to upgrade it. They needed just to get a pass rusher to help out their defense. They get one in Azeez Ojulari. who I also had graded as a first round talent. You pick him up in the second round. Another guy, Aaron Robinson, who I could have seen going in the first round. You pick him up in the third, and you match him up with Bradbury just to give you even more depth in that secondary. I think the Giants, had like one of those low key kind of drafts that nobody's gonna be talking about, but they got some players that can play day one, and hopefully, like they can make a playoffs and make a run for the Hooters.
Yeah, and they also picked up draft capital in future years. We saw Dave
Hmm.
Gettleman unsurprisingly trading down. Now, I wasn't terribly surprised. I thought that was a team that was in a position to possibly trade down. Um, Especially that we saw them get jumped for Devontae Smith. No one was shocked by that. But you do pick up the Bears' first round pick. I think they picked up a third round pick in the future as well. So the
Hmm.
Giants, they either have ammunition for the future or maybe a little bit of ammunition to pick up an Aaron Rodgers. I don't think it'll happen, but
Oh, it
one
could. You
can
got two first
dream,
round
right?
picks
One
next
can
year.
dream.
You got two first round picks next year. I say you send it.
I, Listen, I completely agree. So let's get into some draft losers. I draft loser, and it's weird because I don't necessarily think they're a big loser. It's more so that I kind of disagree with the philosophy of their draft, and that's the Chicago Bears, which is going to be a little bit controversial. I understand because if you look at all like the websites and other people, everyone's big draft winner is Chicago, but I'm taking the other side here. So the first move that they made is they traded up to get Justin Fields, and I'm fine on that move. I don't think that's a bad move at all.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not necessarily in love with it. I think I'd give it like a B, maybe a B plus, because the price was pretty decent for Justin Fields' perceived value. I thought the price they paid was about what I value Justin Fields at. It's just I think that the problem with that pick, and this is a little bit nitpicky here, is didn't we see a very similar thing with Mitchell Trubisky? You trade up for the consensus probably most raw quarterback in the draft. I mean, Justin Fields is not the consensus most raw quarterback in the draft. I believe he's the most raw quarterback in the draft, even over Trey Lance. We can get into that a little bit when we talk about the quarterbacks and their landing spots. Um, I don't. That's not the part of the draft that I hate, though. Right? What I hated is that they traded up again. So in the second round, they traded up again for Tevin Jenkins. And
Hmm.
this was a team coming into the draft that I thought could really use all the picks they could get. Every single season since they went 12-4, I feel like the Bears roster has been on the decline. And I thought that this draft, because Ryan Pace, whether you want to admit it or not, outside of Mitchell Trubisky and kind of the quarterback position in general, really hasn't been a terrible drafter. He's actually been decent.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that this was the chance for Ryan Pace with a third round, fourth round, fifth round picks that if he hits, and in that late second round selection, if he hits, can put this team in a different spot. So, like, if you just did the Justin Fields trade up and then chilled with your second round pick, and then you didn't trade away your third and your fourth in that deal as well, and just kind of picked the tackle that fell to you and then ended up not cutting Leno and kind of just did what you had done in years prior and just made good selections. I thought that is what would have put this football team way more on track instead of trading up for Tevin Jenkins, who I think is a very risky prospect, even more risky than what I think Justin Fields is. So you kind of came away with this draft putting all of your eggs in Justin Fields and Tevin Jenkins, who just kind of happen to be at positions that are the most volatile positions to draft, right? You look at the hit rates of tackles and quarterbacks, those are two of the highest, bust rate positions.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I wasn't a huge fan of the Bears draft. I understand that I could easily eat my words if they pick up a franchise left tackle and a franchise quarterback, it would be a great draft for Chicago. But I thought that they gave up too many picks. They could have used these picks to improve the young talent on their roster. And if one of these picks really doesn't pan out, especially the quarterback one, but even Tevin Jenkins, I feel like they're kind of more stuck in that fringe playoff purgatory that they've kind of been in the past 2, 3 seasons.
Yeah. So for my loser, I don't want to go with the obvious cop out and say the Texans, but because they were they were probably losers walking into the draft and they knew it. But I'm gonna go with the Dallas Cowboys. First pick, I have no problem with this at all. Michael Parsons, beast. Him or JC are the best defensive player in this class, I believe so. So I have no problem with that. But you get into this. I, they had a problem on the offensive line last year, and it's a big reason why Dak got hurt. They didn't elect to take a tackle or a guard until the fourth round. And I know, like a lot of people say, I know they stacked up on defense here, and they did. But it felt like some of these picks, like the second round, like Kelvin Joseph, the corner at Kentucky, like I, I don't know. I feel like some of these picks were reached, like Nashawn Wright, the corner out of Oregon State. This I never even really heard of this guy. You pick him in the third round, especially with people on the board like Aaron Robinson or so. And it felt like for the Cowboys, I feel like they were just sitting in the room, in the war room, and they just had a bunch of names out there, and they would just pick out of a hat. They'd be like, "All right, we'll go with that guy." I wasn't really sold on it. Now they could totally prove me wrong, and the amount of defensive players they picked in this draft, I feel like one of them will definitely hit. But I just have really a huge problem. We knew this was a great tackle class, right? So I don't know why in the second round you would just not get one of those beasts at tackle and help protect Dak. You just gave him a huge contract. You'll fix the defense later in the draft. You got a huge picks, and I wasn't a big fan of their defensive picks. It kind of felt cluttered. I feel like they reached on a lot of their picks here. Could be wrong, but the way I'm feeling, I just really wasn't sold after the first round. Michael Parsons loved that pick, but after the first round, not really sold on the Cowboys draft class.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit higher on the Cowboys draft class than you are, but I will admit that outside of the first round and the second round, recently in recent years, the Cowboys have been struggling in the draft to find these, late day 2 and day 3 picks that
Yeah,
really
we
add
talked about
value to
it
their football
before.
team.
Yeah, we talked about it before. The Cowboys' top tier talent, is elite. It's just these back in the roster guys or these fill in guys, they're just not there. And
Yeah.
for a draft with a team with a good amount of draft capital this year, I just feel like they might have not really reached that length they needed to get at.
No, I agree. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about the draft here, and it wouldn't be our podcast if we weren't talking about the quarterbacks and their landing spots. So let's kind of get into the overall thoughts now that we see where the QBs have landed. So 2021 draft quarterbacks landing spots is what I'll call it. So I'm going to kind of kick this off with saying I thought that the best value pickup at quarterback in the draft and like the best, just all things considered, was Mac Jones to the Patriots at 15. When you compare Mac Jones to Trey Lance and Justin Fields, because we kind of knew that Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence were going to go 1 and 2,
Yeah,
the price that the Patriots had to pay for the difference in quality, because I mean the consensus is that Justin Fields and Trey Lance were better than Mac Jones as a prospect. I know we disagree, but let's just even take the consensus. Let's just act as if the consensus is right. Justin Fields and Trey Lance are both better prospects and better quarterbacks than Mac Jones. The price difference that the Patriots got by just chilling at 15 and picking him up compared to not having to shell out first round picks plus for Justin Fields or Trey Lance, I thought was great for the Patriots. Their risk is very small. It's just what's the risk? One of, a mid first round pick blowing up. That happens every year to a plethora of NFL teams.
yeah,
So if it doesn't pan out, okay, sucks, but we only, we haven't set our franchise back all that much. It's just more unfortunate than anything. And if it pans out, well, you got a quarterback that me and you both had in our top. You had him in your top four as well, right?
I had him top three. He was number three on my board.
Okay, yeah. So we both had it. I had him at number four, very close to number three. You had him at number three. We both had him getting a top four guy at the 15th pick. I thought it was great for the Patriots and a great fit for Mac Jones.
I love the landing spot for Mac Jones. Especially for the Patriots to get a guy that was flirting around literally day of draft. If you look at like the odds where he was looking to go third overall, and of course the 49ers went Trey Lance, but you get a guy that I honestly thought he fell. I thought Mac Jones was going top 10. You take him at 15, and there's just something about like the Patriots of him getting drafted this franchise too. It just it fits perfect, you know. You get him in a well established franchise with the, he kind of goes goat to goat, right? He goes from Saban to Belichick. It's kind of crazy
Yeah.
to think about. And you get Josh McDaniels, who's been one of the top end OCs for a while now. I mean, and also just to talk about like you're playing behind Cam Newton to start off. I would assume Cam Newton's, if I'm a rookie quarterback, is easily one of the first quarterbacks I would want to play under. I just feel like Cam Newton would be a good like leader and role model to adapt to the NFL lifestyle, and he has a good chance of playing easily next year early if Cam Newton gets hurt or just not performing. And also his situation, Patriots just spent a lot of money this free agency on their offense. He has two tight ends, Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry, that are very impressive. And as a rookie quarterback, to come into that situation to have two tight ends you can rely on makes your job even easier. And he's got a great O line. I'm kind of thinking the Patriots may be back with Mac Jones now with the Patriots.
No, I completely agree. And I really like that point that you brought up about Cam Newton because, like you, I think that Cam Newton is one of the best, if not the best, bridge quarterback in the NFL right now, or mentor quarterback, just because Cam Newton is he's a dog in the weight room
Yeah.
working. The guy is just an absolute animal, right? You heard the stories of on all the plane rides home from the games, everyone else is chilling out or sleeping. He's in the playbook. And he's a first in, last out kind of guy. And Mac Jones, the reports were at Alabama that after he got a DUI his freshman year, that he kind of was the same way, right? He was the kind of guy that first in, last out. Learn the offense better than everyone. And Sark, if you listen to Sark's coaching clinic, it came out probably like a year ago, maybe a couple months ago.
Hmm.
Right before he got hired by Texas, like he said, with Mac Jones, this guy was smart and he was willing to learn that we were able to go farther in the offense than he had able to with Tua, for example. So I think it's a puzzle piece fit. I personally believe that it was the best quarterback pickup aside from like those top two, but comparing him to the other two quarterbacks, Trey Lance and Justin Fields, the price that they paid for the quality of prospect, easily the best value pickup. So let's
Yeah.
let's talk about a little bit of Trey Lance here going to the 49ers. There was the big thing, was it Lance or was it Jones? We had been saying for a large part of the process that we felt like it was going to be Mac Jones, but I
Still think
think
it
it
should
was
have been.
I think 4 or 5 days before the draft, I sent out a tweet saying, listen, along the lines of it just really feels like Trey Lance because we had heard the rumors that Jimmy G was going to be moved, but then Jimmy G wasn't being moved. So if you're looking for a guy to learn under Jimmy Garoppolo instead of cutting him, well, that guy was Trey Lance. And that's what I said on Twitter, and that's what ended up happening. I'm not trying to say like I'm taking credit because we both thought Mac Jones, so I was wrong. But it does make sense now why Trey Lance was the pick. And at first, here's kind of the thoughts on it. I think it was a good pickup for the Niners, right? Because Trey Lance, he comes in day one he's going to know a lot of the offense because the offense that they run at North Dakota State and in San Francisco is pretty similar. And those North Dakota State quarterbacks are always more pro ready than people think because they have to be in charge of things like pass protection and some of the audibles and stuff. Like those coaches put a lot more on those quarterback plates
Hmm.
than a lot of these other top tier programs do. That's just how they roll. And that's one of the big reasons why we've seen them kind of develop into QBU because they put an emphasis on developing their quarterbacks. They come in very raw, and when they leave, they know a lot more about football, about the offense, about playing quarterback, and are much more developed. And NFL teams have obviously taken notice to this. So the question I almost want to ask though, and the reason that I am not a huge on this move for the 49ers is that it really feels like the 49ers traded up without having a specific guy in mind. It feels like they just traded up to trade up. And now, obviously, Kyle Shanahan's coming out and saying, like, oh, well, Trey Lance was the guy. Well, like, obviously, he's going to say that Trey Lance was the guy. What are you going to trade up and
After
say,
he
like,
got
oh,
him.
well, we really didn't know. We just kind of put eeny, meeny, miny, mo out there and picked Trey Lance. Like, what do you think he's going to freaking say? That is the reason that I wasn't a huge fan of the pick at first, and still a little bit to this day. It's like you gave up a ton of draft capital. You gave up 3 first round picks and I think other picks on top of it to move up to 3, and you were still deciding between 2 or 3 quarterbacks? Am I crazy in thinking that is a very rash decision?
No, not at all. We kind of talked that on live stream too. Is that if you're investing that much to move up that much, you should have a set guy in mind because you're giving up so much in the future to like invest in this one quarterback. And it felt like the front office and Shanahan were like, for the first time, what I've really seen in his duration for the 49ers, were kind of just butting heads with it. They did not agree. I saw reports where Shanahan liked Matt Jones, but the scouting department was on Trey Lance. And I just I think maybe it was until like a couple days leading up to the draft until they finally decided on Trey Lance. But I definitely don't think you're crazy for thinking that because unless they were thinking Zach Wilson would backslide to 3 and they could easily pick up Zach Wilson, but it felt like the Jets were pretty set in stone on Zach Wilson. Unless they were putting all their eggs in the basket, saying, well, hopefully they just take Panay Sewell or Kyle Pitts at 2, and then we just take the quarterback and take Zach Wilson. But I mean that didn't happen.
Yeah, we knew the top 2 picks in the draft like 2 weeks into the draft process.
Yeah, especially after
Ah,
Darnold got traded.
the thing I will say though is that I have Trey Lance has grown on me a little bit. I still don't think that Trey Lance is as good of a prospect as Josh Allen, which is the guy that everyone
Mm.
is comparing Trey Lance to. I don't know. When I watch Josh Allen, I see a much, much, much better quarterback. Okay, maybe that was one or two too many muches, but I just think he was a better prospect, right? Like, okay, maybe
Yeah.
he was a little bit more inconsistent, but Josh Allen, the throws that he would make consistently for Wyoming were absolutely ridiculous. And it was every game. Trey Lance, like, yeah, you see a couple of ridiculous throws, but I get the same amount, if not more, inconsistency with the less crazy, insane NFL throws. I don't know. I do think though that this situation for Lance is so good that it's going to be a little bit tough for him to fail unless he really can't handle Lance. We know he's a hardworking guy. He comes from a good quarterback school. Like he's going to be already ahead in his development simply because of what I said earlier with knowing the playbook, pass protections, all that stuff. The offense is similar. It's not like he has to relearn everything. A lot of the concepts that they ran at North Dakota State and a lot of the reads and the philosophy is very similar to Shanahan. And he's comfortable under center and all that. So with all that in mind, I have the pick, and even though they trade up a ton, it has grown on me a little bit.
Yeah, I would say for Trey Lance, this is like one of the better situations to get it in with because if there's any quarterback I'd buy into performing well is with Shanahan. Just he's the offensive mastermind. It's just I don't think I'm more sold on Trey Lance as you. I'm going to have to really just see it to believe it. There's something about me that I still have that little like that Trubisky feel to me. Like I don't know if he's going to be able to put it together because like the inconsistencies for me, especially in this accuracy, just kind of turn me off a little bit. But if he can figure it out in San Francisco, and I mean they got a generational kind of quarterback in their hands right now. So I mean time will tell, but I still I think like was it worth it trading all that up if you were really just sold on Mac Jones and you see Mac Jones fall that back and then you could have just picked up Mac Jones at 12.
Yeah, you could have chilled at 12 and picked up. No, I see that's the part that I'm not a fan of is that I just think that the 49ers I like Lynch. I really like Shanahan. I think that's a great organization. But that does not mean that they are immune to bad decisions. And I think they jumped the gun a little bit. I really do. I don't think Trey Lance would have been there at 12. I think there would have been a team that really fell in love with him and jumped up
Yeah.
to get him. But man, I'm not a huge just because you paid the Josh Allen price for Trey Lance. You paid that heavy, heavy price. Lots of first round picks, a whole lot of stock into this guy. And I still do agree with you, even though the pick has grown on me and he has grown on me a little bit. Like, dude, I don't really think he has that Josh Allen upside. I think he could still be good, and I think he could still be a top 10 quarterback. But if we're going to compare him to Josh Allen, I'm taking Josh Allen at the time he was drafted and now, like clearly now. Um, so I agree with you. I think the price was way too high to pick up Trey Lance. I still believe that Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence were in a tier above any of the other quarterbacks. And considering you
Mhm.
could have chilled at 12 and picked up Mac Jones, the guy that Kyle Shanahan wanted, and kept all those first round picks to keep building your roster.
Yeah, it could be a
uh,
miss. But if we're
if you had
wrong
to
and Trey
grade
Lance
that,
is
if you had
grade
to
what?
grade that pick, if you had to grade that grade the trade, what are you giving it? I think I'm giving it like a C plus.
Let's see. I think I'd give it right around C minus for me. It's just
Mm.
I'm more high on Mac Jones and just knowing that you could have just kept all your draft capital and got Mac Jones at 12. That just because like at the end of the day, I think Mac Jones is a better quarterback. Now, ceiling wise, yeah, Trey Lance ceiling is definitely higher, but also Mac Jones instantly could have played in that offense day one and they would have been contenders. And now you got to like toy around with Trey Lance. I think I'd give it a solid C minus.
I mean, dude, we're talking about. I was saying how I wasn't a huge fan of the Bears draft, mainly for that second trade up. Like, even comparing their trade up for Justin Fields, like, holy, they gave up way less assets to pick up Justin Fields than Trey Lance, even though it might not be
Yeah.
as great of a fit. And whether or not you agree with me that Justin Fields might be a little bit more raw than Trey Lance, like, well, that was priced into a certain extent, right? Like you gave up an entire first round pick less. Um, like I don't know. I very risky move from the 49ers, and I'm not sure I'm fully on board with it if I was a 49ers fan. I understand why you're excited, but my God, that is a whole lot to give up, and it's a whole lot riding on him to be successful.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure now on him. And plus, like, that could make or break some jobs right there. If that pick doesn't pan out, I mean, Lynch and them very well may be gone in a couple years. But if it does pan out, then hey, you made the move of the century.
I don't. It's just the value there. The value there is not fun. So let's move on to the next segment. We're going to be looking at the best value picks by round of the NFL draft. So let's just start it off first round. Steed, do you have a favorite value pick in the first round?
In the first round, I would say easily Panay Sewell for me, a guy that was, you know, top two non-quarterback off the board, right? It was either him and
Mhm.
Pitts. If you don't have T. Law or Zach Wilson, he's a top three pick, right? And I feel like the Bengals, Jamar Chase is the sexy pick here. You reunite him with Joe Burrow. But I just still think you should win Panay Sewell. So Lions, a rebuilding team, a team that, just needs good players. You get a guy that could easily be wearing a gold jacket and his career end of his career, Panay Sewell. I just feel like it was easily the smartest pick, but it's the Lions we're talking about, and they for the first pick in their new regime, I feel like they kind of just knocked that out of the park.
Oh, I completely agree. Like you said, Penei Sewell was a guy that would have gone first overall in a couple of drafts, and you picked him up at 7. You know, they have you know how in the war rooms everyone starts going crazy after their picks, they're all super hyped up. Like I think a lot
Hmm.
of those are pretty unjustified. That one you are very justified to be like, "Holy shit, let's fucking go." Like and just
Yeah,
going
just
nuts there. Okay, value pick for me. I've got a couple that I really Um, like JC Horn at 8 to the Panthers, I think is insane. And I'm really close to picking that because I truly thought that JC Horn is a top 5 cornerback prospect value. I would have taken him over Okuda and CJ Henderson last year. Um, like this is a dude that is a beast level corner. I think he's much, much closer to like um what's his name? A Jalen Ramsey than like a Patrick Surtain, for example. I love JC Horn, but I'm not going to pick him because I think that's a little bit of a cop out. There are two that I really like at pass rusher, and it's Quiddy Paye and Joe Tyrone that went to the Colts and the Bucks respectively. I think I'm going to go with Quiddy Paye at 21, just because this is a
okay.
dude that was being mocked in the early teens and in the towards the beginning of the draft process. You wouldn't have been surprised if a team like the Broncos picked him at 9 or the Cowboys picked him up at 10. He slid all the way right into the Colts' laps at 21. I can understand he only had 1 year of production, but this dude kind of checks a lot of the boxes that you want in a pass rusher. And picking him up at 21 is pretty freaking ridiculous, at least in my opinion. And same thing with Joe
Hmm.
Tyrone to a certain extent. The rich keep getting richer. You pick him up all the way at 32. I love Joe Tyrone and think that he's a very solid pass rusher, and am very surprised at some of the guys that went immediately above him.
Yeah, I like those picks. I'm looking at the teams what they picked, and I realized that the Bengals picked up Joseph Asai in the third round. That's a huge value pick right there for
Yeah, it's a
me
nice little
as
value
well.
pickup. Okay, but let's
But you
let's move
get
on to into round 2. You got any guys in round 2 that you love?
let me take a look at my list.
I mean, I can go if you want me to.
Yeah, you go, you go. I
This
got
one's
one.
pretty easy for me. It's Asante Samuel Jr. to the Chargers.
Yeah,
Um, this once again, the Chargers get somehow, I don't know how they do it. They just get insanely talented prospects to fall into their lap in the first and second rounds. It seems like every year in the first round, this could have easily been one of the top value pickups in round 1. Was them getting Slater at 13, a guy that
yeah,
a lot of people had as at some point in the draft process, the number 1 tackle prospect. Well, now they get one of the better, I thought, the best off-ball corner in the draft in Asante Samuel Jr. What's their coach's name? Is it Staley? It's Staley, right? Brandon
yeah,
Staley.
Staley.
Dude, like you give Brandon Staley a huge piece in that secondary because we all knew the Rams had a great secondary when they had the number 1 defense there. Like, well, you have a Bosa and an Ingram up front. Let's get this Asante Samuel Jr. on the back end, a guy that can really go get the football. I love this pick for the Chargers and believe this is easily not just one of the best value picks in round 2. I think it's one of the best value picks in the entire draft at 47 overall for Asante Samuel Jr.
I like that. I'm gonna do my second round pick. My second round is Nick Bolton, the linebacker out of Missouri. He went to the Chiefs at 58th overall. You know, I feel like Nick Bolton easily a top 5 linebacker, maybe even top 3, but top 5. I would probably put Awosa Koromo and Jim Davis over him. But for a team that was struggled at times on defense last year and really got saved from their offense, you get a guy in the later part of the second round in Nick Bolton, who was a beast over there at Missouri and played for 3 years, I'm pretty sure. But I feel like he's a guy that instantly makes an impact on their defense and kind of sets them apart even more.
Yeah, I agree. Like the Chiefs had a phenomenal draft. Like if you
Yeah.
look at there's a graphic I saw on Instagram of the offseason additions at their offensive line. Like dude, they picked up Trey Smith in the 6th round. Spoiler alert, he's probably going to be my value pick there. That's a dude that I loved. So now we get into the 3rd round. And a quick obligatory, because I know that I watched the Vikings general manager's press conference, and he said that they traded down. They wanted to pick up extra 3rd round picks because they really like the value here. Looking at the 3rd round, I completely agree. Holy crap. It was
Yeah.
value town around here. I mean, you look at just every freaking pick the Vikings made in the 3rd round, I loved. Kellen Mond at 66. If you listen to this podcast, you know that I'm a big Kellen Mond guy. Chaz Surratt at 78. This is a dude that I
It's
thought
true.
had 2nd round talent. Chaz Surratt, he's a quarterback transition to linebacker. Really, really nice value pickup there. Wyatt Davis, the guard slash center out of Ohio State at 86. A nice little
Mhm.
pickup there. Patrick Jones at 90, the pass rusher out of Pittsburgh. I thought he had a phenomenal Senior Bowl and would love to have picked him up in the 3rd round. And then you look at some of the guys that the Broncos picked up. Sorry if I'm stealing. There's just so many good value picks here.
I think like every player in this round was a value pick. Like,
Yeah,
God,
Quinn Mainers at 98, Baron
yeah,
Browning at 105. Holy crap. And then one of my other favorite picks, Elijah Molden to the Titans at 100. Just a
yeah.
corner, physical corner that really fits their defense, a guy that will legitimately tackle. Wow, this was an unbelievable round of the draft and a ton of value picks. So you
Yeah,
can
and
pick your
Ronnie
value. Sorry,
Perkins.
I stole like half the draft here with value
I
picks.
mean, yeah, another one. Ronnie Perkins landed the Patriots. I mean,
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
Ronnie Perkins was getting day one buzz, and him to fall late into the 3rd round here, and also just fall into the Patriots. I mean, that's just a great pick. Dude's like, yeah, he's a little undersized, but like the numbers he put up at Oklahoma, he's just impressive. I mean, yeah, like, Nico Collins in the 3rd round, like good receiver at Michigan.
Diami Brown.
Diami Brown.
There was even Amari Rogers. I love that fit in Green Bay. I wasn't huge on him before the draft. Trey Sermon is here. Like Ben Cleveland to the Ravens, I thought was a phenomenal, phenomenal upside pickup that really
Yeah.
fits their physical offense, right? Get a big ass dude for run blocking. Osai, like you kind of said earlier, was a really good pickup. Brady Christensen. We both really like Brady Christensen out of BYU. He falls to the Panthers at pick 70. Aaron Robinson, Alan McNeil. It's like the list just goes on and on. The 3rd round was phenomenal,
Third
and
round
the
might have been the
team
best round.
and like once again, this is why I just love the Vikings because the Vikings just play it so well. And also another favorite one of the value picks I said earlier, Cisco is the 1st pick. This is a dude that
Hmm.
I'm shocked didn't go in the 2nd. But let's move on into the 4th round because holy crap, the 3rd round was ridiculous with talent.
Yeah, the 3rd round was popping with good players.
Let's see, round 4. Um, round 4, you could definitely see a little bit of a drop off.
I mean, Michael Carter was the 2nd pick off, but Michael Carter is a really good pick too there for me.
Hmm. I think a guy that
Tylan
I really
Wallace.
like. that you said earlier, James Hudson out of Cincinnati was a phenomenal
Yeah,
value pickup at 110 for the Browns. Definitely one of my more favorite picks in this round.
I do love that pick. Tylan Wallace is interesting to me. Um, we talked about Marco Wilson earlier. I mean, the dude's athletic ability is crazy. He could fly, and Cardinals pick him up, and then even next, the Seahawks pick up Trey Brown. I thought Trey Brown was a good little
Yeah,
corner out of Oklahoma.
Trey Brown, I like Trey Brown. I thought he was an underrated guy. It's always tough trying to believe in a Big 12 corner, but I like what I saw out of Trey Brown. I thought he was a good little press corner, can can add a little bit of physicality to that Seahawks secondary, especially at the corner position. So I think Trey Brown was a nice little value pickup. And then lastly, before we move on, Tyree Gillespie, the safety out of Mizzou that the Raiders picked up at 143, I think will
Mm.
definitely be a nice addition to that Raiders defense,
Him and
especially
the
at a
twin
huge
safeties.
position of need. Yeah, they picked up like 80 of them. Okay, let's go on to round five. That I like. It's crazy the difference in round three to round four. Like round three,
Yeah,
I
it was a
loved
drop
almost
off.
every pick, but round four, you could see a clear drop off. Okay, so round five, I love Kenneth Gainwell at 150 to the Eagles. I think that is a sick pickup for them.
Yeah. I still like the Davion Nixon pick here at 158 to the
Hmm.
Panthers. And he was getting round two buzz, and to fall away to the fifth round, the Panthers just kind of snag him up.
Yeah,
Match him with Derek Brown.
the other two picks that I really like, Jamar Johnson to the Broncos at
Mm,
164. This is a guy that I think had a shot of going very late day two, but you pick him up in the middle of day three here. I think that is a great pick and a huge upside pick. I really like the physicality that he plays with. And then lastly, dude, the Ravens picking up Ben Mason, the fullback out of Michigan.
yeah.
I know people are going to scoff at a fullback, but this dude is a freaking beast. And the Ravens now have a cheat code on third and fourth and shorts with Ben Mason and oh, what's that running back they have his name? Gus Edwards. Ben Mason and Gus Edwards with a bunch of big run blocking maulers up front. Dude, like, is anyone gonna? And then you have Lamar Jackson's if to hold the ball and pull it if the ends crash. Like, is anyone gonna be able to get this team off the field on third and fourth and like ones and twos?
No, I wouldn't think so. They could just terrorize that. Dude, also in the fifth round here, we talked a little bit on the stream, but KJ Britt to the Bucks, the linebacker at Auburn. I've watched like a handful of Auburn games, especially 2 years ago when their defense was really dirty. He's a guy that I think is extreme good value for the Bucks in round five. He can easily play. He's not as quick and fast as like a Devin White, but just has the nose for football and knows where to go. I like that pick a lot too.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on into round six. Round six, I have two that I absolutely love. The first, like I said earlier, surprise, surprise, we get Trey Smith, the guard out of Tennessee. This is a dude that I thought was a
Mm,
second round talent. He fell due to medical issues. He had blood clots in like his heart or his lungs or something that forced him to miss
yeah,
football in 2019. And clearly that was the reason that he fell. Everyone will agree because this is an absolute beast. And he falls into the lap of the Chiefs. The rich just get richer. And then the other, I thought my Steelers had a great value pickup in Quincy Roche out of Miami. This is a
yeah,
dude that I thought him and Patrick Jones to me were the big winners at pass rusher at the Senior Bowl. And Patrick Jones, you saw, went way earlier than Roche. I think that Roche is great. I really think that NFL teams mainly thought that his upside, well, not his upside, his role would only really be a rotational pass rusher in the NFL. I thought that he could offer a little bit more than that. And I guess the Steelers might have as well, where they pick him up at pick 216. I think that is a fantastic pick.
yeah. I really did love that pick, and I was surprised Quincy Roche fell that far. Golly, Miami's D line was crazy. But two more
Yeah.
picks for me in the round six are both receivers, both went back to back. Marquez Stevenson can fly, and you put him on this Bills like passing attack. I'm really intrigued what I see there. I think he could be like a good little burner for him. And same thing with Shy Smith. We talked about him going all the way to the sixth round to the Panthers. Another team that is got a really good passing game over there with Joe Brady, and I'm interested to see what his role in. Those are two guys that I could see, even though they're later round draft guys, and you're kind of just like throwing darts to the dartboard here. Those are two guys that I could see easily being the third or fourth receiver on the team and getting a lot of good playing time and making impacts for their ball clubs.
Yeah, I guess a couple more like honorable mentions. I thought both the Eagles picks were very good, and Marlon Tupoilotu, the D
Yeah.
tackle out of USC, and Teron Jackson out of Coastal Carolina. I thought those are two very good picks. And then lastly, the Panthers picking up Deontay Brown at 193. I thought was a nice
hmm
value get. I would have expected him to go a little bit earlier in the draft. So now we can finish it up. Round seven. Round seven definitely scraping the bottom of the barrel here in terms of picks.
For
Oh
real.
Jesus. I think a nice value pickup was Dax Milne, the second to last pick in the draft for the Washington football team. I thought that he was pretty underrated as a receiver on that BYU team. He was the favorite target for Zach Wilson. And opposite ends of the spectrum, Zach Wilson goes second pick. His boy Dax Milne goes second to last in the
Last,
draft.
yeah.
But I thought that the Washington football team got a nice little value get here. And I think he does fit the system a little bit because Dax Milne, I thought, was really good at getting open on these like scramble drill kind of plays and just finding space. Um, he really feels like at the very back end of the draft, a nice little underrated guy. He was a walk on at BYU. He's been underrated his entire career. And I do like the possible upside of a Dax Milne.
Yeah, since we're picking out of the barrel here, one name is James Wiggins, that safety from Cincinnati. Uh, Cincinnati's team last year was insane. A lot of good talent across the board. You've seen a lot of them get drafted in this draft, and for good reason. But I feel like James Wiggins could find himself on a role in this team, if it's on special teams or not. Uh, what I've seen, especially when I watched the Georgia game, I just remember him really just flying around the field and making plays all over like every single corner. So if we're just picking, because like round seven is kind of like we're just doing whatever. But I kind of like that pick, James Wiggins.
Okay, I guess lastly, Presley Harvin III, the punter out of Georgia Tech, landing in the
Oh
Berg,
yeah,
the Chonk himself.
dude. I looked at like comparison videos of him, and someone was saying how like Eddie Lacy thinks he could fool us just thinking he's coming back in the league as a punter. They did like a side by side of when Eddie Lacy got extremely fat. But yeah, like I remember when y'all took that punter, you were like kind of upset. Then we kind of watched the videos on him, dude. The dude's got a cannon. He can throw it. He throws dimes.
Yeah, I know it's a punter, but yeah, I respect it. And if anyone wants to take it back on Presley Harvin, they better watch out because Presley Harvin's gonna fuck him up. So, last segment of the pod, kind of just wanted to talk about biggest surprises from the draft.
Hmm.
I'll kick it off, and for me, it was Dimey Brown going as late as he did in the draft. He ended up being a third round selection by the Washington football team. I think he was pick 83. Let me just double check that really quickly. No, he was pick 82. My bad. I really thought that Dimey Brown would not have slipped out of the second round. I actually thought that Dimey Brown, there was a decent chance he could have gotten in the late first round, especially to the Ravens. When you saw the reports that Terrace Marshall was going to fall a little bit due to his medicals, I thought that the next guy up could have easily been a Dimey Brown. Really, really surprised to see him go in the third round. I thought that for at least for me, Dimey Brown, there wasn't really a box that he didn't check. Data analytics wise, film wise, athletic wise, He was the total package, and the Washington football team got an absolute steal in the third round picking him up.
Yeah, I think my first surprise is not really like a player, but that the Eagles and the Cowboys made a trade in the first round, like two big arch rivals here, just kind of trying to screw the Giants one more time and making a trade. I feel like, and the Eagles pick up Devontae. I mean, I thought I like the trade for both teams because like the Cowboys were acquiring more picks at the time, and I don't really like what they did with the picks. But I was a little shocked to see when there was a trade. It was between the Eagles and the Cowboys. Was not expecting that.
No, yeah, I'll give you that. The other surprise for me, the other really big one was two running backs going in the first round.
Yeah, that
I
was going to be
thought,
Monday.
yeah, I thought that the big, the whole, oh, well, Najee Harris to Pittsburgh buzz, I thought that was a bait and that was false. I was not surprised to see ETN go in the first, just because of of how dynamic he is in his upside. I guess the same thing with Najee because of his role in the passing game. But if you were to ask me the day of the draft, like, oh, you think that even one running back is going to go in the first, I was going to say no, let alone two back-to-back top 25 selections. So I thought that was pretty shocking to see two backs go in the first round.
Yeah, I was shocked about that because I was on the same boat as you. I didn't think a single running back was going to be picked. Um, Another shocking thing for me was probably I don't think it's going to be shocking for most people, but I was pretty set in stone that the Bengals were going to just draft Sewell. But like, I was still shocked when they drafted Jamar Chase. I was pretty much sold that Sewell was going five, but for me, that was shocking that they went Jamar Chase. I get it, I truly do, but I find that shocking. Another thing I find shocking is that Darisaw fell all the way to 23, because Darisaw was a guy that I liked. Darisaw was the second guy on my tackle list, and
Yeah.
like I had him mock going the Vikings, and he still went to the Vikings. And hats off to the Vikings somehow still getting him at 23. But especially teams like I love the Quiddy Pie pick by the Colts, but you need to replace a tackle. You could have got the second best tackle in this class, in my eyes, at 20 for literally just fall in your laps.
I agree. I think the order of the tackles, especially, was really surprising to see. Cosme fall all the way to the late second round, and
Yeah.
like Tevin Jenkins, like I don't know. Not that I expected Tevin Jenkins to fall farther than 39. It's just he was a guy that you weren't going to be surprised to see him go first, and you wouldn't have been surprised to see him go third with how inconsistent he was on tape. And like Walker Little, we had no idea where he was going to go, and I guess 45 was a pretty good pick for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Because he
I
could
don't
have
know.
went higher, he could have went lower. With Walker Little, it was just the injury concern. I'm glad, and especially the Jags, I'm glad they took the chance on him because I think if he's ready to go and he's healthy to play, like he would have easily been up in that first round category, no question.
Yeah, I think the last surprise for me, because I would have called you crazy for this, was imagine saying before the draft that Dwayne Eskridge and Tutu Atwell were going to go before Terrace Marshall. I
Yeah,
thought that was a shocker and a half.
I was kind of shocked that Tutu and went second round. I was thinking Tutu would be like back end third or a late or a day three guy.
Yeah, I mean, Tutu's weird just because I valued Tutu higher. And then I saw, people were worried about the Devontae Smith weight concerns. Tutu Atwell is the size of like a high school sophomore,
Yeah,
you know? Like, I thought that teams would have legitimately been scared at the guy weighed in 149 pounds, I'm pretty sure. Like, that is really small. Like 160 whatever pounds that Devontae Smith weighed in at was definitely small, but 149 pounds is like a whole new variation of small. That's like smallest dude on the field by far, kind of small. So I personally thought that would have impacted his draft stock. Clearly, it did not. And Dwayne Eskridge, on the other hand, granted, he got picked by the Seahawks, and every year you just have no fucking idea what the Seahawks are going to do because they don't give a shit. They'll just take a guy. He could be projected to be undrafted, and you wouldn't be surprised to see the Seahawks pick him up in the first round. But Dwayne Eskridge is a little raw. I actually really like Dwayne Eskridge's talent. I just didn't think he would be picked before someone like Terrace Marshall. And he's old. He's like 24. So clearly they didn't give a shit about that.
No, I guess not at all. I guess another thing I was surprised about, we were talking about it earlier, but we were surprised that Zach Ertz wasn't traded. You know,
Yeah.
like I feel like I don't know why they're still holding on to him. I feel like the draft was a perfect time to move him, you know, get something out of him. But like, hasn't Zach Ertz made it pretty imperative he doesn't want to play for him next year?
Yeah. No, he has. So I agree with you. I think that was kind of shocking. Also, to see Ernest Jones, the linebacker out of South Carolina, go in the third.
Yeah,
I thought
that
he was a
shocked me
day
too.
3 guy easily.
That shocked me. I did not expect that. Darius Washington,
Oh,
a
yeah.
good little safety, not even getting drafted. I mean, in our mock drafts, we had him going third or fourth round to our teams that we were mocking for, and to see him not even go, and you know, I think that's a first of all, it's not good. Like I think Darius Washington could have easily gone in the fifth or the fourth, but you know, whoever I can't remember who picked him up, but I expect him to make the team easily. I think he's just too good of a player.
Yeah, who was that running back that the Vikings picked up?
Oh, in the fourth round, oh yeah, the
Was it in the
speedster.
fourth? They just took a running back that was on nobody's radar. Yeah, Keen or Kene and Wongwu out of Iowa State. I
Yeah.
mean, he was just kind of behind Brees Hall and what was the other guy's name? I can't think of it. He's in the NFL, but regardless, this is a dude that was just mainly like a kick returner kind of a guy. Dude, top 120 picks before someone like Ramondre Stevenson and Chuba Hubbard. Wow, that was a real shocker. Now, granted, it's a day 3 shocker, so it wasn't extremely exciting, but it was like a real what the fuck is going on? Like, who the
Yeah.
hell is this guy?
I think another kind of shocker that nobody's really talking about is the Saints and their first round pick, Peyton Turner. We had in our last podcast before this, we are kind of just doing like, you know, sleepers or whatever. I thought Peyton Turner would go somewhere around like in the third round because I do think he can play. But when he was picked in the first round, I was kind of like shaken back because like you still had people on the board like Brissell, Osai, Away, and guys like that.
Tyrone as well, because I thought Tyrone
Tyrone.
was the kind of guy that NFL scouts knew was gonna go in the first, but he was like a consensus sleeper, so he was like a fake sleeper to a certain extent.
Mhm.
I agree though. Peyton Turner was like a very surprising pick at 28, but it's the Saints, man. That's what they do. Peyton
Yeah.
Turner, who was the pass rusher the Saints drafted a couple years ago? They traded up for um
Of oh, it was Arm
Davenport.
no Davenport, yeah.
Yeah, Peyton
Marcus
Turner is like
Davenport.
almost like another Davenport. So I think that they
But
almost
Davenport was projected to go in the first round when he
yeah,
came
yeah, yeah,
out.
but they're very similar players from what
Yeah.
I have seen. So I think that Sean Payton and them think that Peyton Turner was like easily a
Oh, I'm
first
not.
round
I
prospect.
think he's a great player, and you know it kind of scares me that the Saints, like you know, teams didn't really think Peyton Turner belonged to be in the first round. The Saints take him. You know that kind of scares me from a Falcons point of view because I could just see another few years of a D lineman just terrorizing us.
Yeah. It's almost like Peyton Turner and Ronnie Perkins swapped because we were
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
train where
probably.
it's like, okay, we think that Ronnie Perkins can be the guy that goes late first and Peyton Turner a sleeper in the third. And it was the other way around where Peyton Turner was the sleeper to go in the first and Ronnie Perkins fall a little bit into the third. But I think they're both pretty decent prospects. Man, the Patriots getting Perkins there in the third, I think is a phenomenal pickup for them in that defense. Dude, that is one thing. Quick little segment guess, I guess, before we end. That Patriots front seven from last year to this year is ridiculous. ridiculously different. Like,
It's
it
going to be
is
good.
insane. Um,
It's going to be really good.
like, wow, the turnaround. I mean, you could say a similar thing for the Patriots offense as well, but it's not like the Patriots defense was bad last year. Now they just get way better
Yeah.
in their front seven. So, I mean, we saw the Patriots against the Rams, especially against the Rams, where the Rams didn't have to do anything. They just handed the ball off to Cam Akers on outside zone over and over and over again. The Patriots had no
Hmm.
answer.
They
Um,
just ran all over him.
yeah, now if we see a similar matchup to that, it's like, well, this
It's
front
probably
seven
not
is
going to happen.
ridiculous.
Yeah. It's definitely
The,
more of their strength now.
so, do you think we could see? I've seen rumors of Gilmore getting traded. I would not want to
I
see
don't,
Gilmore get traded as a Patriots fan. Do
I
you
wouldn't
think the
either.
Patriots could get back to that 2019 level of defense now that their front seven is completely revamped and redone?
And Hightower's coming back too, right?
Yeah, it like, dude, night and day, night and day. They replaced every single defensive lineman aside from Winovich, and now Winovich is like their third pass rusher, second or third pass rusher, because now it's like you have Winovich, um, fuck, we were just talking about him, Perkins,
Ronnie Perkins.
Judon. You pick up Godchow. You get
Did they get Van Noy back?
Yeah, they got Van Noy. Like, dude, their front seven, they added so much talent. It's insane. That I'm legitimately thinking, like, now obviously the 2019 Patriots defense was ridiculous. Like, one of the better
Yeah.
defenses we've seen ever. Like, statistically speaking, at least, with the amount of turnovers and like points that they would add to that team. Yeah, they had Tom Brady, but that defense, once week 7 or week 8 hit, that defense carried them into the
Yeah. They
playoffs.
did. Yeah,
Could
I
we see
remember
a
that.
similar thing happen?
I think their front seven now is definitely going to. I don't know if it'll be back at that same level, just because some of those players, they've gotten older, right? And
Yeah.
so like I don't know if they could be at the same level, and especially I'm not sure with Dante Hightower sitting out a year, how's that going to treat him? Probably not going to really affect him that much. I would think, but like to get back in game action. But am I going to sit here and say they're going to be just nothing to worry about? No, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I would think this front seven would be, and keep them in a lot of ball games too. If like Mac Jones or Cam Newton are struggling, uh, I mean, is it going to be 2019 level good? I think that's kind of hard to repeat. But is it going
Yeah.
to be top five, top 10 in the league? Oh, easily, I can see that. Right now on paper, it's there.
Because we were going to get into next episode the over unders. We did really well in the over unders last year, so we're starting to look into it again to hopefully have that repeat success. And I just can't stop thinking about this Patriots Dolphins matchup, right? Because the Dolphins and Patriots matchups were already pretty close as is. Now you give the Patriots a way more talented pass rush and running defense. It's like this
Yeah.
matchup starts to get really interesting. So, if you had to pick right now, what team is better, the Dolphins or the Patriots? Which one are you picking? I think I'm picking the Patriots, to be honest. And it's going to be a little bit of a crazy take because everyone's been all on the Dolphins. The Dolphins have been like, the popular team. They're like cool. They had all the draft picks, but man, I really like what Bill Belichick has done.
I'm going to agree with you. I still think the Patriots are the better team from free agency and their draft, and of course having Belichick. But looking at it now, looking at his front seven and knowing that the Dolphins have to play him twice a year, and it'll be a big contributor if they get in the playoffs or not. I mean, now you look at it like should they went Sewell at 6 to help block these guys?
I mean, I not a fan of the Waddle pick at 6. I know we already talked about it, but it's like, dude, coming out of that draft, you had a home run set up. You had it. You could have taken a guy that is like a projected Hall of Famer. You could have, like you said, you could have just taken Sewell and picked up
I
a
mean, honestly,
receiver
I
in the
would.
second round.
Yeah, easily. I mean, there were. You had Elijah Moore go. What do you went third round to the
Second round, he went
Jets? Second
34.
round. Yeah, he could have picked him up there. They would have had the pick. Now I'm just thinking, should they have made that trade at all? Like for like the 49ers too, like the Dolphins, should they have made that trade at all? Because like you take Waddle, but what really did you get back in return? Because you could have just stayed at 3 with still a lot of draft capital and pick up Kyle Pitts.
Well, Iwano was looking like the big winner, at least pre-draft. Obviously, post-draft, I think it's gonna be different
The
if
Eagles.
Waddle and I was gonna say the Eagles. Like they actually look to be the big winner because they were able to trade down. Essentially, they just maneuvered their way to the 10 spot to pick up Devontae Smith, and he's a
Mhm.
guy I thought that if the Dolphins picked up at 6, everyone would still be like, "Fuck yeah!" Like, I don't know. I really feel like Jalen Waddle is kind of the bait. We've seen it every year. It's the bait. Um, I'm not a fan of it there at 6. Just at least comparing him to Sewell. If the Dolphins were truly a
Yeah,
team with no needs, why didn't you just pick up Sewell?
I think I would just taken Sewell in that. I don't really know. I'll question that, and especially now, like when that trade happened, it was a lot of mess, and we're like, oh, now the Dolphins are just they're going to get one of these top guys. It doesn't matter, and they pick Waddle. We're not the huge Waddle fan here. If Waddle doesn't pan out, dude, you missed out on so many good players, and you could have just stayed at 3 and just taken Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that you could have just stayed at 3 and taken the safest non-quarterback in the draft. And I think they just got a little bit too cute. And now we've
And
seen
you
a
would
team
still
like
have that first round pick.
the Patriots kind of just played it cool. Let's see if it comes back to bite them in the ass a little bit.
Yeah, the Patriots could be easily back, and we remember that Patriots team was competitive last year, 7 and
Yeah.
9. I mean,
And then
now
you
you
had the
add up.
ESPN broadcast that was trashing him that last week. They're like, oh, Patriots, they're going to be in the dumpster for years. Yeah,
No, I mean,
I don't know about that.
and then they had $80 million in free agency, and then you go over here, you have a nice draft, you pick up a quarterback, you don't trade anything, you don't give anything up, you have players come back because of COVID. Like, I mean, come on now,
Yeah, well,
we
yeah, the
really going to count
Patriots
out this
just
team?
Patriots really opened up the wallet and we're like, listen, we are buying every tight end. We are the new Ryan Pace. We're buying tight ends. Give me all the tight ends.
If you got a
But
tight end, we want them.
that's going to be it for the episode. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and peace out.
Peace out.